The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk on a Friday. It is no COVID Friday. And so we can get right to the show. So,
well,
I'll give you
a good one. Last night there was an ordinance and legislation subcommittee meeting of the city council. And it was hot. The city council again addressed the pay rate increases that the mayor wanted. Sean Kadim made it very clear. He said, we've sent this back to the mayor not once, not twice, but 3 times. And 3 times he sent it back with no changes, meaning he's not willing to change it. We can stomp our feet all we want, but this council will always do the same thing and rubber stamp it. We scream, rant, and rave about the city budget, but every year we approve it. It makes absolutely no sense. He says if you want the mayor to pay attention and to begin to work with the city council needs to put their foot down and bury this bill, bury this in the committee and not let it go anywhere. But Linda wants to send it to the full city council so that they can vote on it instead. Makes for an interesting time.
Well, you know, the irony of that is that first of all, it's long overdue. I mean, we've been saying that for all the time we've been on the show, that the city council always complains, yet they have the ultimate say, because if they don't fund it, it doesn't happen. And they are a lot more powerful than they pretend to be. They keep throwing their hands up and saying, what can we do? Well, guess what? They just answered their own question. They've known it all along, but this mayor and any mayor that's pushing their own political agenda, which is to give, unfettered raises to people, he wants a blank check. And he doesn't care how he spends money, and not even his own money, but other monies, like employee monies. So it's time for the council to stand up or go, because you're going to complain. I just got a statement from my bank telling me how much my mortgage is going to go up because my taxes are rolled into my mortgage.
Right.
So that way I don't have to worry about getting down there and paying the stuff. But the escrow account, now my mortgage is going up because it's not technically my mortgage, but it's the escrow balance for my taxes. I don't like traipsing down there and doing it this way. The bank handles it, and it's fine. But I just got my letter in, ironically, yesterday. I was reading what my new rate was. And the increase in the rate was all for taxes.
That's right.
And listen, people of Fall River, you're coming up complain. Wait till you see your water bills. You think it's bad this year. It's an election year. They're going up this year in an election year, which is something they try to never do. So it shows how bad off we are. And wait till after the election, the following year. Watch that. Watch how you're going to get hammered next year. And you know whose fault it will be? Yours, because in November, you've got a chance to vote in people who will not approve pay raises, huge pay raises, paying people like they work in Boston, paying people even more than they work in Boston if they're friendly with the mayor. Why? Because you never put your foot down. And as Kadim said, it's time to put their foot down. And I hate to say it, but Sean Kadim is one of the most guilty parties of of complaining about stuff and bringing up all kinds of points on why something shouldn't be done and then voting for it, because he's done that on numerous occasions. He's put together a very cogent argument about whatever was being proposed, and then he turns around and votes for it after he gives you 25 reasons why we shouldn't do it. But listen, they're never going to stop, people. They're never going to stop until you stop them. And the only way you can stop them is hold your city council's feet to the fire. When was the last? All we've done in the past 15 years is create more supervisory and administrative positions, give everybody stipends and pay raises, and not once have we ever tried to reconfigure a department, make it leaner, make it more effective, and make it cheaper to run. Years ago, it used to be lean and mean budgets, bare bones budgets. Now it's Katie bar the door, full speed ahead. Let's give everybody we know a job and a pay raise and a stipend. And guess what? The only way to stop it is have a city council that puts the taxpayer first.
Well, you know, Sean Kadim brought up the stipends too. And they say, you know, even though we lock it out, we stop. If there's money left in your salary budget, you give them stipends. So it makes no sense. And they haven't filed it. Now, one of the things that Sean asked for was a current review. And how long would it take for a current review of the pay scales and the way that they're paid? And Mary Sahadi said it would take a year or more. Okay. I'll give her for the sake of argument, I'm going to give her that.
Oh, Jesus.
But they started talking about getting the salaries in Boston, in Springfield, in Worcester. And I believe Sean Kadim said that's not how it's done. Which, as you have said many times on this show, that's not how it's done. You've got to be in the same universe. But Linda is all for paying people more money. Linda's out there booting for more money. We need to pay more money. We've lost 2 engineers because we don't pay them enough, because they get $20,000 more to work 15 minutes closer to home. Guess what?
Listen, yeah. Look. This is the same horse manure we've been listening to for years. As a matter of fact, we can go back 15 years or so.
From the same people,
you know, to the New Bedford Standard Times, where it said if you work for the city as a worker, work in New Bedford. If you're an administrator, work in Fall River. You see, when the unions go to arbitration, you bring in Worcester and Boston and Springfield. The arbitrator throws you out of the room and you lose the arbitration and you don't get anything, because it has to be communities of comparable size, the universe. See what they get paid in Lowell and Lynn and Brockton and places like that. And frankly, the rents are cheaper here. Everything's cheaper. That's why they pay the way they pay in Boston, because it's 4 times the amount to pay your rent up there. And the reality is it's simple. It's what the market can bear. And the first thing we have to prove when we go to arbitration is ability to pay. But isn't it ironic that the city never has to prove ability to pay when they give pay raises to political appointees and administrators? We can pay the superintendent like they pay the superintendent in Newton. Oh, yeah, we can pay this guy and this guy like they pay in Newton. Well, guess what? Newton was in my universe. I could never get Newton's salaries and benefits. You know why? The arbitrator had a half a brain. When I went to arbitration, I had all 9 other communities of our size, all of which had varying abilities to pay, and I had them all ranked and every benefit ranked. We're Fall River ranked. We were always right at the bottom, and Newton was right at the top, followed closely by Cambridge. And if I went in there and said, I want Newton's salaries, Cambridge's salaries, you know what the arbitrator would have told me? Fall River isn't Newton or Cambridge. Newton and Cambridge has a far greater ability to pay their people. So if you want to go from 9th out of 10th or 8th out of 10, try to get to 7th or 6th. Not try to go to number 1 and number 2, because for the real people, like people who work for a living, your boss ain't making money, you ain't getting a pay raise, buddy. I don't care how hard you work. I don't care how good you are at your job. In the real world, companies don't give out money unless they're making money. And this city never makes money because it's not supposed to make money. But all we do is give out pay raises every single year like they're mandatory. And Mary Sahadi said they are. Taxes and pay raises are mandatory. And no, they're not. They're not.
Actually,
And
Mary
the taxpayer gets the crap beat out of them all the time. And you have to hold the people who approve these budgets and hold their feet to the fire.
Actually, Mary Sahadi said,
we have to go back to the era when taxpayers were number 1.
Right. Well, actually, Mary Sahadi said that every contract person gets the same pay raise that the AFSCME union gets. And we've been doing that for over 20 years. And that's the way it's done. Well, guess what? Put a stop to it. Put a stop to it. She says they can't do that. She says you can't.
I always have problems, CJ, with your feed. I'm getting every other word. So what did she say they've been doing for 20 years? Let's see if I can catch actually what you said, because I missed about half of that.
They have been giving pay raises to every contract personnel based upon the AFSCME contract. So if it's 1.5% for the union, it's 1.5% for all the contract people who are not members of the union. And she says they have to do that, otherwise raises would be political. You don't have to do that. You can
that's absolute crap. That's absolute crap. That is BS to the highest level. She's full of crap, because you know what that resulted in for the past 20 years? Hidden pay raises.
That's
stipends.
Right.
That's what created this shit show. Because you're not obligated to pay everybody the same. What you're obligated to do when you go to arbitration is be paid a salary that's comparable with people in your own profession. You don't give secretaries a pay raise equivalent to a firefighter or a policeman or a DCM worker. They're supposed to be negotiating their contracts based on comparing their salaries to a like position in communities of their size. This city has done that, and technically, that's not even legal. The city never went into an arbitration with me. I went there twice, never said, well, we have to give them this because we gave it to everybody else. Because they know that's even illegal. That's not even bargaining. So you lock in a weak-kneed union that works under the thumb of the mayor and is afraid to get fired, and that's gonna lock in every other union. That's why they get all kinds of hidden stuff. They change the pay grades. They put new steps in. They give stipends out because they're getting more. Nobody's getting exactly the same. You cost out that contract. She's full of crap. And as a matter of fact, I'll cite something that we had years ago, and maybe you remember it, CJ. Many years ago, they gave the nurses zeros for 3 years. And they said, this is going to apply to every union because they took zero. And guess what? No union took zeros. Every single union in the city of Fall River got a pay raise. And you know what they did? They had to go back and give the nurses that pay raise because they croaked the weak union because there was only a few of them. And they said, if you don't accept zeros, we're gonna get rid of you. This entire city and their negotiations is political. Mary Sahadi, everything she says is 180 degrees away from the truth. As a matter of fact, doing what they do makes this totally political. Let them negotiate like the statute says when you go to arbitration. Let every single bargaining unit come in with a wage comparison of what people make in Brockton, in Lynn, in Lowell, in Newton, in Cambridge, in their universe, and make a benefit comparison and a wage comparison, and then take that and look at the city's ability to pay and that ratio. That's what you call bargaining. That's bargaining. And it never happens in the city of Fall River unless you force them into arbitration. And I can tell you that because I did it for 24 years. And twice I had to go to arbitration. And twice they never mentioned, oh, everybody else got it. No, they didn't, because you can't do that. That's not the way this is supposed to go. You're supposed to look at what people get in cities for doing your job. Then you also have to look at how much do they get based on a city's ability to pay, because that's the first thing. And the Fall River doesn't have a big ability to pay. They got plenty of ability to pay their administrators, but they don't have abilities to pay the working people. So if they did that, there would be a lot better harmony in Fall River, because if every DCM guy knew where they stood in relation to other DCM guys and they were climbing up that ladder incrementally like they're supposed to, and this city was earmarking money properly and not just breaking the bank every year, this would be a different world. But you know where that starts? At the city council. And as Kadeem said, it's time to put their foot down. It's long overdue.
Well, long overdue. I mean, right now they're still fighting on the water bill, okay? And let's get real. We know, you and I both know, as much as they put their foot down on that water bill and they say they're not going to pass it, it's going to pass. They'll get a few no votes, but it's going to pass. Because this city council is spineless, like every city council before it. You know, the days of Jack Medeiros are long since gone. Although now we may be getting another Jack Medeiros with Michelle Dion. But when the elected politicians remember to take the taxpayer into consideration, that's when it should be done. And Linda's claim that we're not paying people enough money and that's why they leave. No, that's not why they leave. They come here, they take the low-paying wage so they can get their training, as Sean Kadeem said, and then once they're trained, they leave and go get a better job somewhere else for more money. We take the crap end of the stick and we train them, and then once we train them, we send them on their way. Just like was brought up last night on the fact that the water department has 3 positions open, but they can't get anyone with a license to come and take those positions. Linda's saying it's because we're not paying them enough. That may be true. And Linda said that people with licenses should get paid more for their licenses. That's what happens in the union contracts. If somebody has a CDL, they get paid a little more money. So maybe that should be done. Maybe we should be paying them more money if they're licensed. But listen, our water department hires them without the licenses, as Paul Furlan said, and then they train them. And it takes them over a year to train them. And then what happens when they're trained? They leave. They go somewhere else. We've got to stop training people and paying them top dollar.
You would look, CJ, this is all crap. She's probably got somebody in mind for the water department job. So she wants to get them a pay raise before she even lobbies for them to get the job. So listen, this is all BS, because this crap, like I said, nobody stays in this city. Just look at what happened when we had the firefighter layoffs. They laid them off. Most of them came back. They laid them off again, and most of them didn't come back. They stayed in Newton. They stayed in Brookline. They stayed in these nice little rich communities where they never have to worry about getting laid off because the city can't control its budget and prioritize firefighting. And they're going to do less firefighting for more money because Fall River is busier than all those communities. Always has been. We were the number 1 or 2 ranked city in the state when I was on a job. We were ahead of Worcester sometime and Springfield sometime. But we were always in the top 4. There were no communities of our size that were close to us in firefighting, in runs, in arson. I remember years ago, I went before the council for the period reported by the state fire marshal, and I said, you want to know how much Fall River does? I said, in the last reporting period, New Bedford had 17 arson fires. I remember those numbers vividly. And I said, Fall River had 541. 541 arson fires versus 17 in that reporting period in New Bedford. Do we get paid more? No, we didn't get paid more. But we have to get the pay in accordance with how we relate to other communities and the ability to pay. See, Linda doesn't care about our ability to pay because she'll just tax us to death. Well, you know something? If you want to work in Fall River, the living's a little cheaper. You might like the community. Okay. You work in Fall River. As long as you know that your job is being compared to what other people get and you're slowly creeping up that ladder, some people will come. But you're right. Nobody stays. Nobody else. I don't give a damn how much you pay them. You really believe somebody's going to stay in this disaster of a city where politics rules everything? Nothing's ever done effectively and efficiently, and nobody cares about the taxpayer? As soon as they can get a job somewhere else for equal, more, or even a little less, they're gone. So you have to make a choice when you come to Fall River. Do you want to pay lower rents? Do you want to pay have a much cheaper cost of living? So then you balance that out. You don't have to commute. You got a lower cost of living. So, if I'm making $100 a week, where it costs me $6 a week to get groceries, I'm better off than if I'm getting $500 a week in Newton and it costs me $300 to get groceries and other things. Those are decisions that people have to make. This horse manure about we have to recruit by paying everybody more to come work here. Nobody in their right mind would stay in his city right now. The books are screwed up. There's always a horror show at budget time. Everything is political. Nobody wants to stay here. Let's start calling a spade a spade. Stop trying to, you got about 17,000 layers of lipstick on this pig. So let's call it what it really is. Nobody wants to come work here. We got a damn mayor that wants to give everybody a giant pay raise, obliterate any kind of control over how much I pay my friends. But then I'll jerk off the unions for 0.5%. Unless they do what I tell them. That's not the way it's supposed to work. The day they bargain in the open and say, when we bargain with firefighters, we compare firefighters with firefighters in our universe. When we bargain with DCM, we'll get it. We'll compare them with DCM. And when I'm bargaining with City Hall employees, I'm going to compare them. School department, Meg Mayo Brown had secretaries making $20,000 or $30,000 more than other secretaries. Her handpicked secretaries. You think anybody wants to work in a place like this? You think anybody wants to work in a place where they create positions for people that have nothing, there's nothing for them to do, but they create positions, and then the people who are out there all the time doing the work can't get anything. They got to fight for every nickel and dime. This city has always been way too political. And now the unions just don't fight anymore. They just try to politicize their way to pay raises, and it's not going to work. So I'm telling you, this is all hyperbole. And when Linda says we got to pay them more, tell Linda to go open up Chapter 150E and check out what happens when you go to the Joint Labor Management Commission on an arbitration and see what they have to do. You have to stay in your own universe, and you have to prove ability to pay. In this city, you think you always have the ability to pay because you can always rape the taxpayers. Well, it's time to stop raping the taxpayers.
Yeah, from your mouth to God's ear, because I'll tell you now, we know the city council doesn't listen. And maybe it's time for our viewers and other city residents to send letters to the city council and say, as Sean Kadim said, you stomp, bitch, piss, and moan, but you never do anything about it. If you're not going to do anything about it, stop complaining. If you're just going to pass the budget, don't ask any questions, just pass the budget. Because it's getting to be ridiculous. You're putting on a show for no reason because you're not impressing me with your floor show. Okay? If you're going to pass the budget, pass the budget. If you're not going to pass the budget, don't pass the budget. But don't play games in the middle. Don't play games in the middle. Make up your mind and do it. Represent the taxpayer like you're supposed to. Don't represent the mayor. Don't represent Mary Sahadi. And as a matter of fact, don't represent the new city administrator, which obviously can't do the job himself because Mary Sahadi's got to hold his hand at meetings because he's still too new. Again, here we go again. We hire somebody who's not qualified, and he's got to have his hand held. Don't get me wrong. Tim McCoy had some pretty coherent arguments yesterday. But again, you have to do more than just placate the city council. You have to do more than placate the people. You have to make sure you're doing something to make it happen. And of all people, Tim McCoy should know that this city can't afford it. And if we can't afford it, we can't afford it. Instead of the mayor going through his budget and saying, let's get rid of all of these assistants to the assistants to the assistants and save some money there, and maybe not have to raise the taxes as much. No, instead he turns around and he says, oh, well, now the assistants to the assistants to the assistants need an assistant. So we'll add another layer of political appointees to spend and waste some more money. That's what happens in Fall River, people. And you vote for it, you condone it, and you say, oh, well, I'm going to give you my vote because you're a nice guy and you fixed my pothole. You're a nice guy and you gave me a chow mein sandwich. Guess what? It doesn't fly anymore. A $1 chow mein sandwich isn't worth $400 more in taxes or $100 more in water, $100 more in sewer. It's not for, and you did that for a $1 chow mein sandwich. So remember that. That $1 comes out of your pocket in the form of $100 or $200. But for the most part, what happens is the people that vote don't own properties. And because they don't own properties, they don't care. And that's why these lame-ass duck city councilors get reelected, because the people don't care. And I don't care if that means you don't like me, because guess what? You don't like me anyways, so I don't care. Life is too short for me to be concerned about being liked or not liked. I say it the way it is, and if you don't like that, prove me wrong. That's all I have to say. Prove me wrong. And I know you've said that numerous times, Chip. Prove me wrong.
Well said, CJ. Well said. As I will remind all the people, remember that situation in the New Bedford Standard Times. If you're an administrator working Fall River, so what that was telling you was the administrators here were doing a lot better than their administrators who were doing the same job for less money. So there you go, Linda. It's not about the money. It's about the money that this city can bear. And if you can't get people, well, you're going to have to reconfigure the government and maybe get some people. And I think that's crap, because we can get people on the verge of retirement or retired. They just are looking for something. They got the background and they just want to get a little gig. But you know
that's
something?
Chip, got to cut you off. Got to cut you off. Got to cut you off. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great weekend. Remember, stay cool because it's going to be hot.
Taxpayers.
Thanks for watching. Have a great day.